press this down. And again, always those two lanes of traffic. You got that forward oncoming and outgoing traffic. And they're coming across each other. And that's what's keeping it on center. Right, look at them coming across each other. And that's what's keeping it on center. When you start getting lower, project that clay at the bottom forward a little bit. It'll keep it so the top doesn't get so wacky. And then you can really control the clay here. I think I could probably turn my music up a little bit. Hold on. So we go to the bottom of the clay and we say, hey, clay, you got any jobs for us, my friend? And the clay says, yeah, here we go. Here's a little bump. I want you to take this little bump all the way up the side of the pot here. And again, you guys see how slow we're going. There we go. Right? And so when you're throwing, it's really all about like trying to listen to what the clay is saying to you. 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. And I'm going to emphasize on this bottom edge a little bit. So I'm going to push in more with my finger. And I'm just doing this because I want it to try to collapse a little bit more. Sometimes if that top edge is too thin, it's not going to want to collapse. And so I think something that you can do is you can just emphasize this bottom edge and you can give it a little bit more likelihood to collapse on that middle part. And so here we go, getting some water right on this top rim here. Having my fingers down inside, slowly pushing this out. Really going out sideways as much as we can. Hold that edge ever so slightly and just allow it to drop in place. So once we get out here, we're going to keep our hands still for just a second. I'm going to slowly bring the clay inward. We're going to make this little volcano and saying, hello, volcano, we meet again. Right? Always do something with a volcano. There's potential to do something at this stage, but I just am not doing it yet on these pots. I feel like one of these days I will, just not yet. And I'm opening that back up just a little bit so I can fit my hand in there. Knuckle on this bottom edge. I'm really using my knuckle as a tool to equalize the clay. And I don't want to go, I gotta be careful because when I go narrow, I gotta go wide, right? So I gotta remember that this is getting wider, so I gotta keep some thickness up there, or else it's gonna get totally ruined. We're gonna do one collar here. Get the collar up to about that, so now we can fit our hands underneath. And when I'm doing this, I'm really trying to make it pretty centered. Also, we wanted to get some height out of this too, right? And so there we go. Second, I gotta make this bottom look a little bit more intentional. So I'm gonna go right down to the bottom here. I'm gonna make a little spiral. So I have my finger down. I'm gonna say, okay, ready, set, go. Stop. Okay. There we go. Now we're going to start our spiral twist thing here at the bottom here. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Nice. Curl, 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 curl. Done. Okay, so there's number 2, y'all. I really am liking the way that these bottoms of these trees end up looking. I think they're kind of nice. And so I'm kind of excited to, maybe I'll do 100 of them, just because I think they're kind of a cool form. All right. Camera B. Okay. we go again. We have that push and we got that pull, and we're going up ever so slightly. Nice. Going back down to this bottom edge. We're pulling this up. We can do this one more time. You see how it's a little bit wobbly, but as we're at this bottom edge here, project it forward ever so slightly. And that way you can kind of keep it up. Right? Slow the wheel down. I always say that that's like one of the most fun parts about this whole process. I feel like nowadays, since I'm doing all the recording, I gotta have little moments for me that I think are kind of cool. Okay, a little bit more water right on our arm there. And then we always say, hey Clay, what do you got for us down here? You got a quest? And the Clay says, yes. I have this bump, and I need you to take this bump all the way up the side of the pot here. Nice. So there's the pull. And go. Stop. Emphasize these slices ever so slightly. So then we go to collapse it. Wants to collapse more towards the bottom and not as much towards the top area. With our fingers ever so slightly. Slowly pull our fingers out. We can let them sit for a second. And they might collapse, but they might not. Look at that. Give that top rim a little bit extra love. There you go. Right. If you want to see the insides of them, camera C. Camera C. So you can see the inside swirl here, and I think that looks pretty crazy. I'm a really big fan of some of these interiors, and I think the rim is almost like a little framing device for some of the shapes that you get on the interior there. Green on. All right, so if I'm looking at some of these, I'm gonna look over here at this one first. I think first of all, this one, it's a little bit too cylindrical, right? There's not a lot of personality, but I think there's some cool things happening. I like how small and how half the pot is the tree and half the pot is this bottom spiral with the tendrils. I think that looks really nice. And then if I go over here, I think that this one really does what I want these trees to do the best. I have a little tear on that right side over there. Is that right? Maybe for you guys it is. And then I think the spirals and the tendrils on the bottom are just doing just enough to splay it out ever so slightly. So then there's a nice contrast between the bottom, that tightness of the middle, and again, that release on the top. And then if we look at the one in the back, this one is crazy. So I went too thin on that rim there, right? On when I was pulling that treetop out, and it got too thin, it ripped and teared, and now it looks like it's falling apart, but still some of it's resting on some of that internal twist, so it's supporting it, so it's still keeping it up, right? And so I think that just breathes enough intention into it where it's a little bit more acceptable. Thank you guys so much for watching. All the best, and strong mentality.